Sorry, I kept you waiting, Rabbi Say. Right now, I came up at 8:10, and Mincha Marv was at Tribeca at 8:20, and they finished Mincha Marv at 8:53. I ran back, took out the machinery from the car, and just finished setting it up. We are sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yehuda Arya, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tibya Miriam Bas God, Yosef ben Tzim ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great shidduch for Chayat Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry, L'Refuah Shalema for Toiba Roisa Bas Hinda, a great civic for their daughter and grandchildren, by Baruch Ian Lila Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Yaina, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin, by Eddie Chazan for the safety of the IDF and their Nitzachin, and for the safety of Klal Yisrael by Menachem Yemansky. For all those looking for a zivik should find it quickly and easily, and for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection of Yeshua Menachem Mendel ben Bela Shendel Rivka. Tonight's shir is being specially sponsored by Yitzi Muller, Le'ili Nishmas his Shver, Aaron Yaakov ben Chaim Nachman. His neshama should have an aliyah. He should have a lichtige Gan Eden. He should be a Melz Yosher for his family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. Okay, we are holding at the new Mishnah on Daf Yud Testament Beis, and I just want to comment that those of you that follow the Chak and didn't catch it on Monday night, last night we had an hour and 13-minute Chak. It was really a terrific Chak, and if you want to try to catch that, you will enjoy it. And we welcome in Michal and Dr. Black, Chaim Kramer, Dr. Guy, Mo Kushner, Baruch Ian, Yaakov Warman, Berish Gesserman, Shelley Zeitlin, Marshall Castle, Saba, Menachem Yemansky, Israel Fisher, Shimon Klein, Ruvain Shannet, Rabbi Kranz, Nachman Chapler, Shalom Fogel, Eddie Chazan, Moshe Lehman, Elia Shutman, Richard Rosenzweig, Naftali Jablin, Abe Arbach, Danny Vogel, and Yitzi Fuchs, and David Helfgott. Wonderful to have everybody joining us. We're at the new Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Yud Testament Beis. Ein oisin tachshiten. What? What do you say, Eddie?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not able to mute myself. But as long as can we dive in also for David Ben? Hold on, he just had a stroke. A good friend of mine. David Reuven Ben Pesaya.
David Reuven Ben Pesaya should have a refuah shalema b'sek she'achel Yisrael.
Thank you.
So the Mishnah says, we can't make any jewelry, ornaments for a getchka, like katlois. Katlois it's interesting. Katlois in the notion of kotal, which is a choker. You can't make for them katlois and nizamim, nose rings, v'tabois, and finger rings. Rabbi Eliezer says, b'schar mutter. Rabbi Eliezer holds that if they pay for it, it's permitted. Now, Tosfos says, it can't be. How could Rabbi Eliezer say that you could charge and make decorations for idols? Tosfos takes out this entire segment of the Mishnah and starts the Mishnah from Mechubal Karka, and the Mishnah says the next halach in the Mishnah is Ei Meichel Lehem b'Mechubal Karka. This is going to be a subject. You can't sell them something attached to the ground. This is because it says Lo Yisechanein. Lo Yisechanein means Lo Yisitein Lehem Chaniya B'Karka. You shouldn't give them a camping Yitzi is back, good. You can't give them camping in the ground. You can't give them a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. But you could sell them after it's cut off the ground. Rabbi Yehuda says, you know what? You could stipulate that you'll sell it to them, but they have to cut it off the ground. Rabbi Yehuda, you could sell it to them on the condition that they cut it off the ground. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili, how do you know that you can't sell them something that's attached to the ground? And you know, from the fact that the Gemara starts with the dinner b'chubla karka, it is mashma like Tosfos that the Gemara didn't have the first part of the Mishnah in its girsa at all. Minani Mili, Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, we're going to now learn a pasuk which has three different lessons. The Amakra loy sechanim, and we darshan loy sechanim loy siten lehem chaniya bekarka. You shouldn't give them an encampment in the land of Eretz Yisrael. So you don't sell them anything attached to the ground, because then you're letting them have a portion, a chaniya, a camping in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, but we use this pasuk for something else. Hay loy sechanim mibayalei dahachi kama rachmana. You should not give them favor, which means you shouldn't say, how handsome is this idolater? How strong is this pagan? You're not supposed to do that. Says the Gemara, well, imkain, if that's all it meant to teach us, also that they shouldn't have a chaniya b'karka. But we also learn another lesson from it. You shouldn't give them a free gift. Now, this halacha and the halacha of not showing them favor is all anti-fraternization laws. Because if we're going to give them gifts and we're going to say praise to them, then they're going to cozy up with us, and we don't want that. It's all an anti-assimilation maneuver, which is, by the way, very, very appropriate for this week's Parsha, which says, Hein am levadad yishkain. We are a nation that should dwell apart. Uvagoyim lo yischashav. And we shouldn't be considered amongst the nations. It's better for Jews always to stay apart. The famous Sras Emes, that Hashem built in a valve in the world, that if we get too close to the Goyim, then Hashem causes them to hate us in order that we should be pushed away from them. That's what happened in Spain. When we got too close in Spain, then came the Inquisition, which pushed us away. In Germany, when we got too close and we started assimilating, so then there came the Nazis and pushed us away. I'm not saying that that's why the terrible destruction of the Nazis happened in Europe, but that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is we started becoming too cozy, and when we become too cozy, then Hashem reminds us that you're in gullus and pushes us away. By the way, that dynamic started, it's a famous medrash in Mitzrayim, and the medrash asks a simple question. Why did the Egyptians hate us? Yosef saved Mitzrayim. So the medrash answers this question. Kishemeis Yosef, after Yosef passed away, Heiferu bris milah. Klal Yisrael annulled the circumcision. Amru niya k'mitzrayim. They said, let us be like the Egyptians. Miyad, immediately, hapach libam, Hashem changed their hearts. Lisnai amai, to hate our people. Lisnakel ba'avodav, to act deviously with his servants. That's the model for persecution in all times. and therefore we're recommended stay away from the goyim. And it's counterintuitive, because there were many Jews that thought that if we could ingratiate ourselves with the goyim and go to their country clubs and play golf with them and do everything with them, so then they'll like us. But that's not the way it works. Yaakov was mispalel that the most dangerous thing is when the guy is cozy with us. That's why he said, Hatzileni na miyad ochi miyad Esav. Save me if he behaves like my brother, and save me if he behaves like murderous Esav. But the bigger danger is where he behaves like my brother, and I get close to him, and I start assimilating. Oh, that's the biggest danger. And we know that, in the silent Holocaust of America, we lost more people through assimilation than we did through the gas chambers. The gas chambers only took away Olam Hazeh. The assimilation is taking away Olam Haba. The assimilation today is so frightening. People don't even know that they're Jews. They don't even know that they're Jews. They don't even know if they're Goyim. I remember that when I did outreach in Heartland Village in Staten Island about 40 years ago. I remember I gave a class to young ladies, and I remember that Barbara Frippiani was a Yid, and Miriam Katz was a guy. Really scary. Because this man married an Italian and named the girl after his mother. So she was Miriam Katz, but she was a guy. On the other hand, Barbara Frippiani, a guy married a Yiddish girl, and their daughter, Barbara Frippiani, was a Yid. It's a mixed up world. It's really scary. Anyway, says the Gemara, Va'akati mi ba'ilei dahachi am rachmana lo yisitin lehem matna shel chinam, that you shouldn't give them gifts. Says the Gemara, im kein lema kra lo yisichinam, which would be chinam, free. By lo yisichonem shmami nakulu. We learn out all of the lessons. Number one, you shouldn't give them to take root in Eretz Yisrael. Number two, you shouldn't say things about them, compliments about the pagan. And number three, you shouldn't give them gifts. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned likewise. Lo yisichonem, lo yisitin lehem chaniya b'karka. You shouldn't let them take root in Eretz Yisrael. Davar achar lo yisichonem, lo yisitin lehem chen. You should show them favor. Davar achar lo yisichonem, lo yisitin lehem matnas chinam. Shouldn't give them a gift. There's a famous story that Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the Pesach Hador at the time, was in a cab in Eretz Yisrael. And he had somebody with him, and he asked him to help him calculate the proper tip to give. And he was very careful to give the proper tip. And, he wanted to know what the percentage is, that he should figure it out and give the proper tip. So afterwards, the person asked Shlomo Zalman, it's not meiser. Why do you have to be so exact? So he said, you know why? Because if I give less, then it's a chilul Hashem. If I give more, then it's lo yisichonem, lo yisitin lehem chinam, not to give them a gift. So therefore, he wanted to know exactly how to give. It's a very, very interesting story from Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. About people that are medaktek in mitzvahs. Says the Gemara, well, this din, umatnas chinam, gufa tanoihi. It's it's a machloikis if you're allowed to give them a gift. The Tanya, lo seichlu kol nevela, you can't eat nevela. In other words, if let's say the shchita was disqualified, the sheikhet shechted wrong, so the animal becomes a nevela, you're not allowed to eat it. L'gera asher b'sharecha titnena, you should give it to a resident alien. A resident alien is a guy who accepted the 7 Noahide laws. According to some, it's a guy that accepted just not to worship idolatry. So you should give it to such a ger taishiv, v'achla, and he'll eat it, oimachar l'nachri, or sell it to a guy. I only know that you could give it as a gift to the ger taishiv or sell it to a guy. How do I know that you could sell it to a ger taishiv? Talmud Leimer, we read it together. Titneno oimachar, give it or sell it. How do you know that you could gift it to a pagan? Talmud Leimer, titnena v'achla, give it to him that he should eat it. Oimachar l'nachri. Nimtza ata oimer, the conclusion is echad ger ve'echad oivi kechavim, both a ger taishiv and a goy, bein b'nesina, bein b'mechira, you could either give it or sell it. Divrei Meir. So at least according to a mayor, he holds that there's no issur from giving a guy, a pagan, a gift. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Devarim kichsavim. It's like it says in the pasuk. Leger b'nesina, either give it as a gift to a ger taishiv, or la'ayvei kechavim b'mechira, or to a pagan you sell it, but you can't gift it to a pagan because you're not allowed to give him a matana, lo'isachonei. Nor can you sell it to a ger taishiv. Here it's talking about a ger taishiv that's needy. So if he's needy, you have a mitzvah ve'chazakta by to support a resident alien. To support, we learn out from a ribui that you have a mitzvah of tzedakah to support a ger taishiv, a resident alien. So the Gemara says, well, shaper ka'amar Reb Meir. Reb Meir says that the pasuk could be read both ways. It says, lo yisaychlu kol nevela l'ger asher b'sharecha titnena v'achla oimachar. And you could also read it, titnena v'achla oimachar l'nachri. So Reb Meir makes a good point. Rabbi Yehuda says if it was going to be that both is either a gift or selling, then there shouldn't be an oy in the pasuk. Either give it as a gift or sell it. Leger ulenachri. Oy lamali. Why does it have to say either gift it or sell it? Shmami no ledvarim kiksavim. The O tells us that it's either or. Who does? Now, what does Rameir do with the O? Rameir says that the pasuk is telling you what's the preferable thing to do. If you have a choice, give it to a gift to a ger and be mikayim the mitzvah of echazakta over selling it to a guy. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't need a pasuk for that. That's obvious. Since a ger you're required to keep alive, there's a mitzvah of exacta by a ger taishiv, and a guy, a pagan, you're not mechuyev to keep alive. That you don't need to tell you that it comes first. By the way, it's an interesting thing talking about supporting a guy that keeps the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. It was the opinion of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that there is an inyan to be mekarev the guy to keep the 7 Noahide laws. Inyan of Kiruv Rechaikim. I always make a kal v'chomer that if I have to be mekarev a guy, then Marshall, alachas kama v'kama. I always make that kal v'chomer. Marshall, you like that kal v'chomer?
Of course.
Yeah, I knew that. Did you say horse or of course?
Mr. Ed.
Anyway, I actually was thinking of that.
Thank you, Wilbur.
What?
Yeah, Bilam's donkey, this parsha.
Right, Bilam's donkey, yeah. Bilam's donkey was older than Mr. Ed. It was from Sheshis Yimei Bereishis. So anyway...
Was the donkey or was it just his mouth?
That's it.
It says peanut, son.
That's, by the way, that's a big machlokes. There's a big discussion about that. Says the Gemara, Davar achar lo sichaneim lo sitein lahem chen. You shouldn't show them favor. You shouldn't give them a compliment. Messiah leila Rav, this is a proof to Rav. The Amar Rav, also Adam Sheyomer, a person is forbidden to say, Kama noa avedes kechavim zu. How beautiful is this goita? How beautiful is this woman pagan? Now, the Rishonim say clearly that this isn't only because she's a female and it's a gender thing. Rather, if you're not allowed to say how handsome is this pagan movie star. You're not allowed to say that either. Just it's more likely that one would praise a Vedas Kechavim. Meisvei, Ma'aser Reb Shimon Gamliel, Shehoya al Gabe Ma'ala Bahar Abayis. He was standing on a step on the Temple Mount. V'ra Ovedes Kechavim Achas No B'Yaiser. He saw an exceedingly beautiful goita. If you notice, I'm avoiding the common vernacular of a shiksa. One should purge the language of shiksa from their vocabulary. I'm training myself to do that. Rapam was very, very, very against saying shiksa. He says a guy, a woman, Goya, is a telem elikim. Shiksa means shekets. You don't call a tzelem elikim a shikta. Now, it's true that we call a guy an orel, and the orel is zuama. But Rapam did not condone calling a guy a sheketz. He didn't condone it. So, but he saw a beautiful pagan woman when he was standing on the steps of the Har Bayis. Amar Mor Rabo Ma'asecha Hashem. How great are your works, Hashem? The Af Rabbi Kiva Ra Eishes Tunis Rufus Harasha. When Rabbi Kiva saw the beautiful wife of Tunis Rufus the wicked, Rock, he spat, Sochak, he laughed, Ubacha, and he cried. Rock, then she was a gaita. He didn't want to have any hearer. So he spat. The saliva is like a tipas rucha, a smelly semen drop. Shahisabam a tipas rucha. Remember that she came from a putrid drop of semen. Sachak, he laughed, because he saw that she would become a convert and he would marry her. The Asida de Megaira of a Nasabla. He married her. Bacha, and he cried, the high Shufra Bali in Afra, because of her beauty that would rot in the ground. Says the Gemara, so how could he praise if we said that you're not allowed to give them chen, you're not allowed to show them favor? So says the Gemara, so what does Rav do? He says you're not allowed to say how beautiful is this gaita. He was just thanking Hashem that he created such beautiful things. He wasn't showing them favor. He was thanking Hashem. One who sees beautiful creatures, Omer Baruch Shekacha Barai Ba'olamai. Blessed is Hashem who made such in his world. This might sound romantic. It is romantic. But I told my wife that I want to go to do Birchas Ilonais with her. So she said, why? We'll each do it when we have time. So I said, when I make a bracha on the fruit, I want to be able to make a bracha that I have a beautiful wife. Right? It says that's what you can do. You go make a bracha on the Ilonais, and you tell your wife that I'm having in mind. People have in mind that the tree is a fruit is a gilgul, and when they make a bracha, they have in mind for the gilgul. And they're makbid to have 2 trees because it says Ilonais in the bracha. This is, I think, even a better kavanah. Go with your wife and tell your wife, when I make the bracha of that the Rebbeinu Shalom made briyos tovos, I have you in mind. There's a ma'isa with. I'm a little garrulous tonight. There's a ma'isa with Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, that he went out and he made a bracha on one tree, and a young man who thinks that maybe the Rav of Venerable Rav of Yerushalayim doesn't know this, came over and said, 2 blocks later, there are 2 trees. Why doesn't the Rav make the bracha on the 2 trees? So Rav Sonnenfeld said, if you look up, you'll see that at the window, there's a widow watching. And she gets a lot of hana that I make a bracha on her tree. And that is more important than making it on 2 trees. So you have to know, like I tell Shelley, stop treeing around. Says the Gemara, but how did Reb Shimon Gamliel gaze at this pretty woman? Says the Gemara, "L'stakule mishari." Are you allowed to gaze at a pretty woman? Meisveiv nishmarta mikol davar ra. You should guard yourself from anything evil. Shelo yistakel adam bi'ishana. You shouldn't gaze at a pretty woman. Va'afilu pnuya. Even if she's single. Be'ishes ish, and if she's married, va'afilu mucheres, even if she's not pretty. So how did he look at her if she's so astoundingly beautiful? Not only that, v'loi bebigdei tzeva shel isha, you shouldn't look at the colored garments of a woman. V'loi bechamor, v'loi bechamora, v'loi bechaza, v'loi bechazira. You shouldn't look at a donkey and a female donkey, a pig and a female pig. V'loi ba'ifus, nor birds, bizman shenizdaken zeh lezeh, when they are mating. Va'afilu molei einayim, even if there is znus all around you, like today, kamalach hamoves, like the malach hamoves, who's made up of all eyes. The simple meaning is he sees in all directions. It says about the malach hamoves, shekuloi molei einayim, he has eyes, he's full of eyes. B'shas petirasei shel chayla, when a sick person is departing from the world, Oimeid me'alma rashosav, he stands above the sick person's head, v'char b'shlufa b'yadai, with a drawn sword, v'tipa shel mara tluyabai, and a drop of gall, a drop of poison is on the tip of the knife. Kevan shechayla roya isan, when he sees it, Mizdazeya, he quakes in fear. Upeiseach piv, he opens his mouth. V'zorcha l'soich piv, and the Malach HaMavis throws that drop of poison into his mouth, Mimena meis, from it he dies, Mimena masriach, from it the body starts to decompose, Mimena panav marikos, and from it the face gets a greenish, yellowish complexion. So the Gemara says, you're right. Reb Shimon Gamliel wouldn't have looked at the woman, but Karen Zavia's Haba, he was turning a corner, and as he turned the corner, she turned the corner, and he bumped into her. Not literally, but that's how he saw her. That's the pshat. They ask a question, why does it say, Loisasuru achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem? It should say, Loisasuru achrei einechem v'achrei levavchem. Because first the eye sees, and then the heart desires. And they say pshat is because for the first look, you're not accountable. Right? So if you turn the corner and you saw her, you can't help. But then, are you going to take the second look? Your heart says to take the second look. So don't go after your heart, to go after your eyes. It's a beautiful pshat. Now, let's study what it says. You shouldn't look at the colored garments of a woman. Now the Gemara says this doesn't mean that you can't window shop in Bloomingdale's and look at women's garments. Says the Gemara, you shouldn't look at it even if she's not wearing them. However, it's only if you know the woman that wore them. Because when you know the woman that wore them, then you're going to think of her when you see her clothing. It says you shouldn't look at the colored garments of a woman. And not colored garments. Shmamina, that it's only if you saw it on the woman. Amrav Krista, and that's only if she already wore it. But if she bought it, but she didn't wear it yet, less lamba. How could you give a woman's garment to a tailor in order to fix it? How come he's looking at it? Says that's not a raya, because when he's doing his job, he's not going to have sinful thoughts. Says the Gemara, if it's an animal with its kind, you could mount the animal and connect them. You could mamish mate them. It's like an applicator in a tube. You could mamish take the genitals and put them together. How could you do that? That's how a Jewish man could be a gynecologist or an obstetrician, because he's busy with his work, and therefore he doesn't think he'll run. He's busy with his work. And once again, I want to say that it's really wonderful to have everybody. Amamar, mimeno meis, from it, the person dies. Says the Gemara, that means that the person is poisoned. Name a pligi de Avoda Shmuel. Let's say that this argues on the father of Shmuel. The Amar Avoda Shmuel, Amali Malach HaMavis, I was told by the angel of death, Eloi de Chayshino liyakra de Briosa. If not, then I was concerned for human dignity. Have a parana beis hashchita kebehema. I would swipe the outside of the throat like an animal. But instead I do it internally. Now this implies that there is a slaughter of the windpipe and the food pipe. Says the Gemara, well, that's no contradiction. Dilma heat tipa, that's the way the poison works, is mechatchalu simonim, it cuts the windpipe and the food pipe internally. Now, mimena masriach, from it, the body decomposes. Messiah leil Rab Chanina bar Kahana, Dam Rab Chanina bar Kahana, Imrei Beirav, Reb Chanina Bar Kama says that they said in the Academy of Rav, Haroitza shelo yasriach, if somebody wants that the body shouldn't decompose, a mesa when he dies, yapchenu al panav, should turn him around, because this way, if you turn him around, then the poison won't spread throughout the whole body. However, it's interesting, it's not the Jewish minhag to turn a body around. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden, in the Agos Yavitz, in the back, says an interesting thing. He says that this only works if you turn him around while he's alive. And you can't turn him around while he's alive because he's a geisus, and you're not allowed to touch a geisus. So this is not practical advice, it's just telling us a mitzias which you're not allowed to do. Now, very interesting, I'm telling you, I don't know if the Olam is taking note, but the last few nights, the Gemara has been extremely interesting. Tan Rabbanan, v'nishmarta mikol davara, you should guard yourself from anything evil. Shelo yaharer adam b'yayim, a person shouldn't think about a woman during the day. V'yovel leidei tuma b'layla, that he should have a nocturnal pollution in the evening. Mikan amar Rab Pinchas ben Yair, from here Rab Pinchas ben Yair says, Torah mevia l'dei zihiris. Torah brings a person that learns Torah, he learns to be careful. You have to be careful. You have to be careful not to steal. You have to be careful not to speak Lashon Hara. Zehiris mevia l'dei zrizis. Taking care leads a person to alacrity. Zrizis, alacrity, mevia l'dei nikias, brings a person to cleanliness. Because a person that is a zoriz, he keeps a few steps away from trouble. Nikias mevia l'dei precious, when a person practices being clean from sin, that leads a person to separate even from that which is mutter. And he starts making safeguards. Precious mevia l'dei tara, such a person gets purity. Tara mevia l'dei chasidus, it brings to piety. Chasidus mevia l'dei anova, to humility. Anova mevia l'dei yiras chet. Now here the Rishonim say over here, yiras chet is a higher madrega. Obviously, if somebody is practicing nikiyas and zahiras, he's afraid of sin. Here, yiras chet means on a higher level, that he doesn't want to sin because of his awe of the Eibishter. Yiras haraimamas. Yiras chet mivia l'dei kedusha, it brings to holiness. Kedusha mivia l'dei ruach hakodesh, and ruach hakodesh mivia l'dei tchias hamesim, and ruach hakodesh brings to tchias hamesim, to the resurrection of the dead. By the way, this brayso of Rab Pinchas ben Yair is what Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato's Mesilas Yesharim is based on. I heard a story from Rav Moshe that somebody went to an alleged Mekubal, and the Mekubal told him that his wife would die. Just nonchalantly, Mekubal told him his wife would die. So the man freaked out, but he ran to Rav Moshe. So Rav Moshe said, you have nothing to worry about. So he said, but this Mekubal told me. He said, for the Mekubal to know that, he has to have Ruach HaKodesh. In order to have Ruach HaKodesh, he has to have Zehiras, He has to have nikiyas. He's not naki if he could tell you just like that your wife is going to die. And therefore, he certainly doesn't have Ruach HaKodesh, and you don't have to worry about it at all. In general, Rav Moshe was not in favor of people going to these so-called mikubalim. As a matter of fact, before his passing, his untimely passing, Rebbe Teitelbaum of Avoda Zara Daf fame, one of his last campaigns, he had several campaigns at the end of his life. One of them is about women that were addicted to going to Chinese auctions. That was one of his campaigns. And he had I remember Country Yossi had a whole story on that in his Country Yossi magazine. And another of his campaigns was against these phony mekubalim. He used to say that he would go to one of these people and say, look, if you give me 6 numbers, then I'll accept you. So what 6 numbers? He says, I don't even need the supplemental. Just give me the 6 lotto numbers. I had an incident where somebody came to Staten Island, and I told people not to go to him. And one of my people disregarded and went, and the Mekubal told him that his wife is pregnant. He was all impressed that the Mekubal told him his wife was pregnant, and he said she's going to have a C-section. And she was a basket case. And he came to me, I said, tell her it's meaningless. She ended up having a natural delivery. But she suffered worrying that she was going to have a C-section. Why you would tell her she's going to have a C-section? Anyway, now which of these midas are the greatest midas? The chasidus gedoyle mikulam. And piety is the greatest thing. Shenema oz dibarta b'chazayin, you will speak in a vision l'chasidecha. Or pligid Rabbi Shua ben Levi, the argues of Rabbi Shua ben Levi, the Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, another gedoyle mikulam. Humility is bigger than all of them. Shenema ruach Hashem Elikim, the spirit of Hashem Elikim, olai, is upon me. Yan Moshe Hashem Osi, Hashem anointed me. Levaser anovim, to give the news to the humble. Chasidim loy nemer el anovim. Halamarita she'anova gedula b'kulan. The greatest level is anova. You know, that's almost paradoxical. You know, so Marshall goes in Chicago and he puts up a sign in the car shop. Nah, I'm the biggest humble person, right? You know, it's hard because usually we are driven by our ego, and here we want to strive to do something which is the antithesis of the ego. It's a very complicated trait, but we see that that's the trait that Moshe Rabbeinu was praised with, right? Ish Moshe ana ma'od mikol adam. Right, so you can't say, Marshall, nah, I'm a bigger honor than you. You can't do it. Now says the Gemara, Ein moichrin lahem. You can't sell them, but Rabbi Yehuda says you could sell it to him and tell him to cut it down. Tan Rabbanan, moichrin lahen ilon almanatz l'kotzas lakutz. Marshall could sell the guy a tree on the condition to cut it down. The kotzas, the Rabbi Yehuda. Rameya says, no. You can't sell it to him until you cut it down. Now, what about if he buys from you shachas, animal fodder? That's grain, a third grown. So shachas almanatz ligzais, Marshall can sell the pagan animal fodder attached to the ground with the condition that he cuts it down, because and he cuts it down. Rabbi Yehuda, you can only sell it if it's cut down. Kama almanas liktzar, you could sell standing corn, standing grain, on the condition that he harvests the kaitza, the Rabbi Yehuda. Rameir says, no, ein meichin ala katsura. So the question is, why do we have to have the machlokes in three cases? By a tree, by the shachas, and by the tfuah. So the Gemara now says they're all necessary. B'tzricha. The ashmin and ilan, if we say the tree, b'hakam Rameir, it's only that Rameir says. Why? He says that there you can't sell it unless you cut it down, because Kavan Deloy Pasid, since if he leaves it in the ground, it's not going to get ruined, so therefore Mashile, it's going to let it grow more. Aval high, but in the case of the tfuah, you don't want it to overgrow. You don't want it. You don't want it to overgrow. The chimash la pasid aim a moidelela Rabbi Yehuda. You don't have to worry. The ashmin and mani betarte mishim delo yedia shivchayu, because its growth is not recognizable. Aval shachas, where it's only a third grown, the yedia shivchayu, as long as you leave it, it becomes more. Aim a moidelela Rabbi Meir, that you can't sell it to him unless you cut it down. The ashmin on baha, and if we say, let's say only the case of shachas, baha kamer Rameir, there Rameir says you have to cut it down, because otherwise he's going to leave it to grow more. Therefore, tzricha, you have to say all three cases. Now, we said that you can't sell a behema gasa to a pagan, because then you might come to lend it or rent it, and he'll work with it on Shabbos, or because you're going to test, you might test it before Shabbos and see if it's going to follow the voice of the future owners. You'll show that it's obedient, and it might come to work on Shabbos. What about if he stipulates that he's buying it to slaughter it? Hasam time of my Rabbi Yehuda the labarishuse kaime, because the tree is not in the guy's possession. So therefore, you could insist that he cuts it down. Therefore, he can't delay cutting it down. Aval behema, the animal, once you sell it to him, he might decide to keep it. He might decide to do work with it. He might keep it and work with it. Maybe there's no difference. Again, it's on the party lines. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Marshall could sell Ike, the animal, in order to shecht it, and he shechts it to Rabbi Yehuda. You have to shecht it first, and only then sell it to him. Okay, another very, very interesting daf. Mirz Hashem, tomorrow we will have also the Chumash here, and we do have a sponsor. Yisrael Fisher is going to be sponsoring the Chumash here, and we're going to do now the Mishnah Yomis.